Welcome in to Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan Lugo. Thanks for tuning in. It's Monday, August 22nd. We are taking a look at the Jaguars' top standout performances versus the Steelers. They did lose 16-15, but in the preseason, the final score is not the end-all, be-all. Jaguars were desperately close, and Ryan Santoso almost bailed them out. But right now, we're going to look at the standouts, as I just said. The biggest positives from this game from a player perspective. And we have to start with running back Travis Etienne entering his second year in the league, effectively his first year in the league, his rookie year. He suffered a Liz Frank injury in preseason week 2 against the Saints in 2021, missed the entire season. He's back now, got his first game action since his injury against the Browns in preseason week 1. It was the Jaguars' second preseason game. But Etienne, I think, looked like himself again. In this one, when you talk about him being able to find the holes, not really dancing around in the backfield, I think the offensive line did a little bit better job this week creating space for him. But you just look at his ability to explode through gaps, his ability to maintain balance through contact, his elusiveness in space. It was all on full display against the Steelers on Saturday night. He finished with 8 carries for 29 yards, not overly impressive, right? But when you look at that 29 yards, 27 yards after contact, which does suggest the offensive line could improve, and it can certainly in the run game. They'll need to make sure that their cohesion and chemistry is more on point up front. But looking at what Travis Etienne did, 27 yards after contact in this one, 29 total yards. I think that's a really impressive stat for him, looking at just how effective he was avoiding tackles, forcing missed tackles, and just seeing his elusiveness and speed through the hole. It looks like he's going to be exactly the player that the Jaguars thought he could be when they drafted him with the 25th overall pick in 2021. Great showing for Travis Etienne. Not sure if you're going to see him in the final preseason game. You might want to wrap that one up, but a really solid performance from the Jaguars' second-year running back. Arden Key on the defensive side of the ball. This might be the steal of free agency. The Jaguars got him on a 1-year deal, $4 million total. And this guy looks like a revelation, at least from what you've seen throughout preseason and the training camp. 3 pressures in this one, a big sack. Again, this is a guy who has outside linebacker size, but he aligns primarily on the interior with a hand in the dirt for the Jaguars in pass rushing situations. And his speed, his hand usage, and quickness is just too much for a lot of guards to handle in the NFL. And he's been showing it week in and week out. Looked really good again in this one. Dawuane Smoot, another interior pass rusher who in 2021 and 2020 was more of a starting type of player. And now getting into 2022, he's going to be more of a rotational interior pass rusher for the Jaguars. He had a monster performance. Just like Arden Key, he picked up 3 pressures, but he also forced a safety against Mason Rudolph in the end zone. Was bearing down on Rudolph, was going to sack him, and Rudolph tossed the ball out of bounds. Picked up an intentional grounding. Of course, if you have an intentional grounding or any penalty of that sort in your own end zone, it's a safety. So Dawuane Smoot picked up a safety. He forced a fumble on a big play. Gunnar Olszewski was trying to pick up a critical first down for the Steelers, was dancing around, and Smoot got in there, got his hand in there, poked the ball out. Just a great performance from a player who has a ton of experience. He is on the final year of his contract in Jacksonville, so it'll be interesting to see how that all works out after the season. But it looks like he and Arden Key are going to team up to be a really incredible rotational pass rush duo on the interior. Flipping sides of the ball again to offense, Brandon Scherff, unbelievable what he's able to do for this offensive line. In pass protection, he wins his one-on-ones consistently. He has really active hands, constantly switching up where his hands are and repositioning to keep himself in the best possible situation. He pins people. He stones pass rushers. It's awesome to see. And then in the run game, he's so good at making an impact on multiple defenders, whether it's chipping a guy that Luke Fortner's trying to block and then moving to the second level, or just going one-on-one at the line of scrimmage and driving his opponent off the ball. Brandon Scherff got the job done in a big way for the Jaguars. The entire offensive line, if they can start to play closer to his level, I think this could be one of the better offensive lines in football. But right now, clearly Brandon Scherff is the best offensive lineman for the Jaguars. Should come as no surprise with the price tag that he cost the Jaguars this offseason. So Brandon Scherff is as advertised for the Jaguars to this point. He's a guy that's playing at an extremely high level at right guard. Then you look at Christian Kirk, another high-priced free agent this offseason for the Jaguars, made his debut after rolling his ankle just prior to preseason week 1 when the Jaguars took on the Browns. Missed that one. He was back full practicing this week, and he made his debut for the Jaguars against the Steelers. He caught everything that he had a chance to catch. Trevor Lawrence targeted him 8 times. 2 of those times were those out routes where Trevor Lawrence was just a little bit high and outside, which if you're going to miss on out routes, you want it to be high and outside so that defender doesn't have a chance to get his hands on the football. But Christian Kirk came away with 5 catches for 54 yards, whether it was him finding the soft spot in the zone, creating separation against man coverage, or hauling in a contested catch. It looked like Christian Kirk was Trevor Lawrence's primary read a lot, and is a guy that's going to be the Jaguars' primary target offensively from a receiving game standpoint, as he should be with the contract he signed this offseason. But he came away with flying colors. He had a stellar performance, 5 catches for 54 yards, caught everything that was catchable. Another receiver that really showed off in this one is Tim Jones, who's fighting for a roster spot at this point for the Jaguars. He had 5 receptions for 70 yards, a handful of broken tackles, a 51-yard catch late in the game. He's been aligning primarily in the slot for the Jaguars, which is interesting because I think if you look at their group of receivers, you would argue that if you're trying to get someone in on the back end there of the roster, you probably want someone who has the ability to align more on the outside, because you have so many players that can align at the slot when you look at Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Jamal Agnew, Laviska Shenault. All those players line up in the slot quite a bit. So we'll see how that plays out, but at this point, when you look at the receivers competing for the back of the roster, Tim Jones has been the most impressive in training camp and in the preseason, without question. He's caught 11 of 14 targets this preseason, and he's making people miss. He's catching everything coming his way, and just looking like he can do a lot of different things for an offense. Again, though, he is lining up primarily in the slot, being asked to do a lot of different things from the slot, but you want to see him get more reps on the outside, I would imagine. And rounding this out, I think realistically, the entire defensive front played at an extremely high level in the first half, and that's all those starters and heavy rotational players that you're going to be seeing a ton on Sundays this fall for the Jaguars. When you look at Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen were both playing really well when they were in the game. It wasn't for a super long time, but they did a great job up front. Foley Fatukasi, Devon Hamilton, Roy Robertson Harris, your 3 down linemen and base, all 3 of those guys played really well. And then looking at some of those rotational players, we mentioned Arden Key and DeJuan Smoot, both played really well, but so did Adam Gotsis, Jameer Jones, and Caleb Von Chason. I thought they all made some impacts for the Jaguars' defensive front. And that's a group that's looking like it might be the best on the team right now, just from their ability to create pressure, to be stout against the run. It looks good up front for the Jaguars defense, and that should really excite y'all. So that is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in to our top standouts from Jaguars versus Steelers in preseason week 2. Up next, the Jaguars take on the Falcons, and that will round out the preseason, and then the regular season will be just around the corner. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Jordan DeLugo, Generation Jaguar, at Generation Jag. You can hit that like button and subscribe on YouTube. Give us the 5-star ratings if you're on your favorite podcast platform of choice. And check genjag.com for all the latest Jaguars news, analysis, and Duval gear.